Hello and welcome to BAFTA Greats, an ongoing series of interviews with individuals key to the development of BAFTA over the course of its history. Tim Angel is the chairman of Angel's Costumes, and he served as chair of BAFTA from 1997 to 2000, seeing it through one of the most significant periods of its history. Tim, let's start most recently with the BAFTA success, receiving the Outstanding British Contribution to Cinema. What did that feel like for Angels?
It was great. I mean, we've worked for so many years in film and television. In fact, we've been around longer than film itself. And it was a recognition for behind the scenes people, which never happens. And I think not just for me and all the people who've gone before, but all the people that have worked here over the years and also all the current team. It meant a lot. I'd actually never realised how much winning something like that could be, because we've always been the bridesmaid, never the bride.
And just in terms of this moment in time receiving this award, how do you feel about BAFTA today?
I've got to go back to come forward, but if I go back to the BAFTA I joined, to the BAFTA that's there now, there's no comparison. Amanda Berry at the time, who wasn't chief executive when I was there, got on really well, and even though she was doing events, she was very much part of all of this. I mean, she was, without her at the time, a lot of what happened couldn't have happened. Amanda was great. There was this group of people that were on the film committee, and BAFTA was in a way the really poor relation to the Oscars. I mean, it really was, and we wanted to change it. It was really important to make it appeal to younger people. You know, to create what we wanted. I think what we all wanted was we wanted a waiting list. We didn't want it that you could just join BAFTA. I mean, there were places like Soho House. There were different clubs around that you could join that just started, and the great thing with them, everyone wanted to be members of them because you couldn't become a member, you had to go on a waiting list. So it's sort of, it was very much the group of us at the time, mainly on the film committee. I can't remember so much who was on the television committee, but I think it was whoever was on that film. Norma Hayman was another one. And we all wanted something, we didn't quite know what.
So you were on the film committee, I think from around 1995 onwards.
Yeah.
A couple of years later, you're approached to become chairman of BAFTA. A role that was and had been very closely associated with producers. What were your thoughts when you were approached, and also the idea that you were responsible and the head of Angels, an incredibly growing organisation in itself, that you might have to sort of give up time?
Well, the first thing when I got approached was, they must be mad. What do they want me for? Because where do I tick any of the boxes? There's all, look who's gone before me. I mean, I'm a business guy. If you like, an entrepreneur. I'm a costumier. Why me? And I think right at the beginning there were probably two people that were going to stand, and I'm not going to name the other one. And in the end, he decided not to stand because. But I remember going home. I can't remember when we had committee meetings, but the night after council meeting, I went home to my missus and said they're driving me mad they want me to be chairman of BAFTA, and my kids, because being in a family business, we sort of do talk and get involved. And I said, if I do it, and I do it the way I want to do it, I'm going to give up a lot of time, and there's obviously going to be bits and pieces, because I've got a certain way I want to do it, but why me? Why me? Why me? And I think she said, well, look, they want, it obviously needs a shake-up. And so I decided, yes, I'd do it. And then everybody drove me mad. I mean, I was getting nagged by quite a few people to do it. And then I think I don't think you realise what's actually going to be involved. And the way I wanted to run it was probably partly my own fault that it became so involved. I had no idea what it was going to take. I thought it'd be once a week, whatever. I had no idea. And it probably could have been once a week, I mean, or once a month or whatever it was. But when I went in, I saw it Yes, it was about whatever it was about, and I can't remember. But I thought, you know, you've got this organisation, you've got one award ceremony that in my book and various others should be 2 award ceremonies. The day I took over, David Putnam rang me and said, by the way, I want to have an interactive awards, or whatever it was called, a games awards I think we had. I knew nothing about it. So suddenly there were 3 awards and there was the kids thing. So there were 4 award ceremonies. One, you know, what did I know about computers or technology? And I thought, great, you know, this is fantastic. So I had this vision of what I wanted BAFTA to be, what I wanted it to be, let alone what Duncan and everybody else want, but I wanted BAFTA to be. And one of the interesting things that came about, and it sort of answers your question, at the last award ceremony that Eddie was chairman of, we used to have these dinners. They were very elitist type dinners. I mean, and I probably had a few of them, but for some reason I get stuck next to this dinner, the guy that was the chief executive of the Oscars. And we were talking, I got on and my wife got on with his wife, and he said, do you ever come to LA? And I always used to go to LA on business for Angels just before the Oscars, because it was a great time, everyone was in town and I could see the people I wanted. So he said, well, why don't you come to the Oscars this year? And I said, oh, I'd love to. And that was it. And I think up until then, I don't think anyone had been to the Oscars. And I went to the Oscars, and this is part of the answer to your question, and I suddenly saw this award ceremony, which is basically no different from what we did, except it was all about films. But it was sexy, and it was a red carpet, and there were these people sitting there watching, and there were people screaming, and there were cameras everywhere, and I didn't have to walk around with an invitation this big to go in my dinner jacket, and they had these tiny invitations, and then they had the after party and all of that, and I thought, you know, this is really good. So it was events like that, and then thinking, well, you know, I'd love to change this, and so, but I had no idea it was going to take so much time.
The idea of dividing the awards, and particularly the film awards now, it seems odd that 18 years down the line, it's just natural. It's now a precursor to the Oscars. It's seen as a serious awards event. It seems odd to look back and think that even as late as the late 1990s, it was seen as very peripheral.
Because of what was happening with British film at the time, with, you know, the sort of films Duncan was making, Steve Woolley was making, and they were getting backed by America. America wanted a separate award ceremony. The fact that it came after the Oscars was another problem, but you couldn't do everything at once. One of the things was we needed to get the BAFTAs moved before the Oscars, because the minute you did that, then it made it much more relevant to the Oscars. You wouldn't have the problem of getting stars over, because the BAFTAs then became, you know, as you said, the precursor for the Oscars. And now you can see, when you see an award ceremony, there are very few gaps in who's there and who's not there, and they're normally genuine reasons. There used to be loads of people not there because it was after the Oscars, and the Oscars was the end of the season, if you like, the prize-giving season.
There are 2 other elements around this period with regards to the awards season that I wondered about the impact. One, from the size of the audience that would naturally increase if they felt a sense of involvement, that public awards suddenly entered the scene, that audiences were able to vote.
I've forgotten about that, yeah. The idea of the popular award and making it voted by the public was part and parcel, you know, to get some lead up going beforehand. And I think that worked. I mean, you know, and they've now changed it to a rising star or whatever. But I think that was sort of, doesn't happen at the Oscars.
And in tandem with that, the sponsorship.
I think that was
with
the biggest thing. I think we'd have Orange on the plinth, and it had to be a certain size, and whatever. Plus the public vote. They could have a public vote, which was a different thing. It was never a mast to start with. And now, 20 years later, EE are still sponsoring the awards.
Looking back after you left the position of chair, is there a single thing that you now look back on and look back at the time of leaving that you were most proud of?
I think that BAFTA sang with one voice, that there was a logo, that we made BAFTA relevant. I look back at the whole rather than any one part of it, because I think my tenure at BAFTA changed the way the place was run. This might sound really big-headed and it's not meant to be. I put in place a structure that BAFTA could work from.
Tim Angel, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hello and welcome to BAFTA Greats, an ongoing series of interviews with individuals key to the organisation over the course of its history. Producer Hilary Bevan-Jones was chair of BAFTA from 2006 through to 2008. And during her tenure, she was responsible for promoting key aspects of the organisation, such as its educational and its charitable work.